Force is strong with this one.
Who's the more foolish, the fool or the fool who follows it?
Laugh it up, fuzzball.
You are the chosen one!
I sense much fear in you.
You have been well trained, my young apprentice. They will be no match for you.
Yes, my master.
Hello and welcome everybody, Nate here. This week I'm going to be doing a deck analysis for you guys on a deck that I've been playing a lot recently. As you'll see, it's eAckbar, eLeia. So let's get into this. So as I mentioned, the starting characters are eLeia and eAckbar. Other than being red characters in a red deck, there was no overwhelming reason to choose the two of them, just that they fit together point total wise. We had tested out trying to run it with Rebel Troopers at one point in time and a few other combinations, and it just felt like to get the biggest punch out of the deck, running eLeia and eAckbar seemed to give us the best options. Other than that, the abilities on the characters aren't necessarily something that we're banking on. It's more just a nice side effect that both of the characters have something that can be useful in a game. Other than that, the biggest aspect to this deck all comes down to the upgrade and event cards. So let's get into those. So for the upgrade cards, we start out running 2 DH-17 blaster pistols, 2 IQA-11 blaster rifles, and 2 holdout blasters. These are our core damaging, generating cards. They all have really good range damage sides on them. The holdout blaster comes with ambush, and the IQA comes with a damage special side. So a lot of different ways to roll damage in. Sadly, the holdout blaster is not a red upgrade. If it was, it would be ridiculously better for this deck. Same thing with the F11D that's villain side only. If that was able to be run in this deck, it would be an instant include. Sadly, villain only stuff. So the other upgrade cards that the deck is running is 2 promotions, 2 scouts, and 2 survival gears. The promotions are actually very, very good in combination with some of the event cards that we're running. You can discard them and play them multiple times in order to draw extra cards for rerolls, in order to draw into more pieces for your combos. It also has focus side, so in all, promotion is a very good card for the deck. Scout is also another utility card that's actually sneakily good, especially on its special side. Being able to look at your opponent's hand to get deck knowledge is nice, because it lets you play around certain things. It also hits some of the more frustrating cards, such as He Doesn't Like You, Holocrons, and that ilk. It lets you play around what your opponent's doing while still being an integral part to the deck. Because it's a red upgrade, it allows you to it's a trap and other things that work well with this particular deck. As far as survival gear goes, it's probably the weakest upgrade and the one that could most likely be cut out of the deck. We'll see what Spirit of Rebellion brings. There might be something that's a better include than survival gear, but right now it's a red dice, and that's primarily what we want, is a red dice to combo into It's a Trap. So we've been talking about It's a Trap, so let's move on over to the event cards and see what some of those do. So the event cards are where this deck really shines. The number one key card in this deck is It's a Trap, which lets you choose a symbol showing on an opponent's dice, then turn any number of your red dice to side showing that symbol. It also has ambush on it, so for 1 cost, you can copy dice sides from your opponent and have the ability to then come back and resolve them on your turn in the same action because of ambush. So there's all kinds of nasty things. You can copy range damage, you can copy focus, you can copy specials if you need to be able to hit scout, or the IQA blaster specials. If you're short on resources, you can copy resources. The possibilities are lucrative as to what all you can copy, and given the fact that this card has ambush on it, means that whatever you copy, you can turn around and instantly resolve, which means that your opponent doesn't have any opportunity to turn around and cancel your dice. Another key event card in this deck is Hit and Run, another card with ambush that lets you activate a red character. So one of the fun things that this deck can do is you can activate a character normally. On your next turn, play Hit and Run to activate your other character, followed up by It's a Trap, and potentially resolve all of your dice that you rolled in, fixing them to a side that your opponent is showing, which allows for huge swings in damage, even in focus, to be able to just change your dice to useful sides. So these two cards work well together, and they especially work well in the deck as a whole. The last event card that's kind of a key combo piece is Rearm. It may not seem like it's a combo enabler, but what it does is it lets you discard some of your better upgrade cards, such as Promotion, Scout, or even the D817 Blaster, to reroll dice, play Rearm, and then get them back onto your character for one less. And in the 3 instances I mentioned, it's basically for free. Also with Promotion, it lets you draw extra cards. Because you're playing it with Rearm, you can draw the extra card from that. So one of the things that I enjoy doing is I'll play a promotion on a character, I will overwrite that promotion with something else, I will then play Rearm to get it back. So I end up drawing 2 extra cards, hopefully hitting into It's a Trap, into Hit and Run, or into some of my other pieces that enable the deck to speed up. The next 3 cards in this deck are your defensive cards. So you have Defensive Position, Field Medic, and Dug In. Dug In and Defensive Position work well with the deck because they require you to have the battlefield. And with how the deck works in being able to use It's a Trap, Hit and Run, and a lot of ambush actions, it's very quick. It can sometimes be on par with activating as quickly as, say, a Django deck, because you really only need to roll your dice in and then hope that you can combo into them with It's a Trap, which means you're generally claiming, which allows you the ability to play Defensive Position and play Dug In relatively regularly. Shields are key because you're weak to damage. You're only running at a low health total of 21, so you can lose your characters pretty quickly. So Defensive Position lets you avoid dice damage potentially by removing anything that's at a value of 2 or higher, and Dug In lets you gain shields. Field Medic lets you remove damage. Pretty simple, straightforward. It does what it does. The deck also runs 2 neutral event cards. It runs 2 copies of All In and 2 copies of Daring Escape. So All In, as we know, resolves any number of dice in the order of my choosing. So it lets you roll out your dice. Let's say you get some focus sides on eAckbar. Play All In, focus out your other dice for damage, resolve everything, and just snowball into things. It basically acts as a 3rd and 4th copy of It's a Trap, as long as you have good dice on the field, whether that be focus or just actual damage. Again, for 1 resource, you're able to speed up the deck. Daring Escape, on the other hand, is another defensive option. It has Ambush, which is nice because it lets you play it, reroll your opponent's dice, What most people don't realize is you can also play this to force your opponent to reroll and potentially get range dice, focus dice, anything that you can It's a Trap off of, and keep going because of the ambush action. So there's been quite a few times where I've played Daring Escape and my opponent's sitting there thinking, I have terrible dice. Why do you want me to re-roll these? They happen to roll in 1 range damage. I play It's a Trap, resolve all my damage dice out, and just snowball back into it. So the deck works really well as a cohesive whole with those cards, and it actually leaves you with 2 slots that are open in the deck. Personally, I usually go with either dodge, block, or logistics. Some combination of those 3 cards. In this version of the deck that I have been playing recently, I went with 1 dodge and 1 logistics just for some extra resource acceleration. And the dodge is primarily there for when I don't have the combo pieces, and our current meta locally is very range damage heavy, so being able to avoid that damage at times is a good thing. So that rounds out all the event cards. Let's go over to the battlefield and see what choice we decided to make there. So for battlefield, I ended up going with Frozen Waste in the deck. Not really any overriding factor to pick this one, just that since we're usually claiming early, being able to remove a character dice, such as a Vader dice or a heavy damage side dice or something that's bad, that's going to come at us, tended to be a stronger ability than some of the other ones. There were a few other things that we had toyed around with, such as Rebel War Room to resolve dice, but anything else seemed like it was helping our opponent more so. This one, since we generally are trying to resolve all of our dice as quickly as possible, and for the most part, the character dice are more enabler dice than they are actually functioning as your main damage output sources. It seemed like the least damaging ability to us. We also didn't necessarily want something like Echo Base that just gave a shield, because we're trying to deal damage, so preventing one of that damage by having your opponent claim and gain a shield can potentially be a pretty big swing, where we didn't really want that ability being out on the table. And in the case that we run into a Qui-Gon deck, you don't want to give them the option to take shield and get the battlefield that they want. So in the end, we went with Frozen Waste. There could be a couple other options, and it really depends on your play style and what your meta is heavy with as to what battlefield might be better in that spot, but that's the one we went with. So now let's go over our last few things for this deck. So let's go over a few final thoughts for this deck. So as you'll notice, it's very good against ranged heavy decks such as Django, Grievous even, Troopers, a lot of different options out there that it has a favorable matchup against. Some of its unfavorable matchups, though, are things that are melee damage heavy. A lot of the melee heavy decks right now, such as Vader and even Dooku Kylo, don't have a lot of range damage sides. They don't have a lot of focus sides. They're all melee damage and usually special heavy. Those are the 2 sides of the dice that this deck can't necessarily take advantage of. So the one key is, especially playing against this deck, I was playing a Vader Raider deck against this quite often, and any time I would roll out a range damage, I was terrified. So especially on a Tusken Raider, resolve it. If you're playing against eAckbar and you think that they're running a version with It's a Trap, ditch a card to resolve that dice. It will benefit you in the long run. When you're playing with the eAckbar deck against something like that, you need to play the deck slightly differently. You're not going to be hitting big It's a Trap swings with range damage on a regular basis. You more so need to focus on resolving into focus sides, into resources, potentially even into shields to prevent damage coming to you. Especially against a deck such as Vader or against Kylo, Dooku, you want to try and claim early so that your dug-ins and defensive positions are useful. You don't want them to be dead cards. If they're dead cards, you're not gaining the full benefit from the defensive package of the deck. Lastly, the deck is fun. The deck is relatively inexpensive to build because there are no legendaries in it. It's also a deck that not a lot of people expect. It's a very under-the-radar deck, even though it's been performing very well in a lot of different events and for a lot of different people, and also in a lot of different formats. If you go look on some of the deck building websites, there's very many different versions of similar decks. So it's definitely a deck that people enjoy, and hopefully you'll give it a shot. That's it for me this week. As always, everybody, thank you for listening. Well, that concludes our first deck analysis video. Thank you, everybody, for watching. We hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, please click the like button and subscribe to the channel. Also, feel free to visit us at thechancecube.com. Also, our Facebook group. And we recently launched a Patreon page, so please visit us there and subscribe there for some exclusive YouTube and podcast content. As always, thank you very much, everyone, and may the Force be with you.